What's good, Guardians? Welcome to another Destiny 2 video from Ultimate Casual Gaming, the home for the casual gamer. I'm just flexing. In today's video, we're going to spotlight the exotic pulse rifle, the Vigilance Wing. A lot of us saw this gun from leaked footage heading into the launch of Destiny 2, and many thought that this would be a Trials exclusive weapon because of the unique design. Well, it is one of the first exotics that dropped for me in Destiny 2, so we know now that that's not the case. Regardless, I've been playing with this gun a ton since it dropped for me, so I wanted to give you my impressions of it. Of course, if you find the content of today's video helpful, please feel free to click the like button. Now let's go ahead and get into the video. So, let's take a look at this weapon. As I mentioned earlier, it definitely has the look of a Trials weapon given its design. The Egyptian theme accents to the weapon really give it a unique look, and I really do love the look and feel of it. I love the look and feel of a lot of the Trials exclusive weapons and armor that was in Destiny 1, and this is right in line with that, with the gold and sort of brassy overall design of the weapon. We do know too that this is related to the Trials and Trials of Osiris, for those that are coming to Destiny in the Destiny universe with this start of Destiny 2. Trials of Osiris was a unique PvP competitive mode where you had a chance to potentially get to a place called the Lighthouse for going 9-0. And we can see in the lore when you click on this weapon that this is definitely a weapon that was from the Trials of Osiris, and you see that Brother Vance talks about it was given to very deserving Guardians. So it's Trials definitely inspired, but it's not Trials exclusive. And there is an ornament that you can acquire from Tess Everest that will give you a look and feel on this gun that's also very unique, more of a worn mummy-like effect. It's very cool. Clearly I haven't gotten that yet. But the sound of the gun, while somewhat unique, really isn't that distinctive in my opinion. Now I know this to be true because unlike other weapons with distinct sounds in Destiny 2, you really can't recognize the sound of this weapon across the map. Maybe if you're listening closely for that fifth burst that we'll talk about in a second. That said, the weapon does have a unique perk set, as all the exotics do, and it's and if you're a fan of pulse rifles, which I am, you really will like this gun. Now let's talk about the perks and weapon stats. First, the overall weapon build. Let's just say, first of all, that the weapon is clearly designed for PvP, based on the intrinsic perks and some of the additional perks that have been built into it. And you'll see why I say that in a second. First, let's talk about that intrinsic perk. It's called Harsh Truths. This perk allows the gun to fire in a 5-round burst instead of the standard 4 on most pulse rifles. In addition, the perk also triggers health regeneration and movement speed when an ally is killed. Now that may not seem like a big deal, but in PvP that has definitely saved my butt more than once, particularly with all the group firing that's been going on, and especially with movement speed. So there were times when I'd be with another member of my fire team and we were in a gun battle. He would lose out, I'd be the last one remaining, they'd still have 2 coming at me, and I'd take off just for survivability. And that movement speed really does kick in. Folks were getting left in the dust and couldn't catch up to me. So I always used to wonder why, because I don't have my Warlock specs for speed or mobility at all, yet I was always pulling away from people never really able to catch up to me. So the movement speed definitely is a bonus. That said, the perk also does really well in strikes, especially things like Nightfalls, when you're a member of a fire team and then they go down. This kicks in as well to kind of help you survive, because you remember your health regen also takes place, and you're going faster. So it does have some PvE benefits to it. As for the other perks, it's got things like corkscrew rifling. Now a lot of these, for some of the older Destiny players, these are some of the same perks, they just have different names to them. But corkscrew rifling is basically added range and stability. Alloy magazine triggers faster reloads when it's empty. It's kind of like reactive reload, I think. And composite stock for additional stability and handling. And you'll see with this weapon, particularly if you look down at its build, it's got really good stability, which it needs because that 5-round, that 5 burst. And the handling is decent. However, the addition of the Last Stand perk definitely proves that the weapon is PvP inspired. Last Stand provides increased weapon performance when you're the last living member of your fire team. Now, that was a pretty standard perk on PvP-inspired weapons in Destiny 1, and it makes a return here. I'm not sure what improved weapon performance actually means, but it will likely mean greater stability, range, and handling. If not all of those, some combination of them. That would need to be tested in some private matches. Once Bungie decides to add them to the game, we should be able to test this even further to find out exactly what that means. Finally, the gun has a meter built into it, and this is a unique thing. And the meter fills up as you do damage to enemies. Now, I've been paying attention to this as I've been doing PvE activities. And what I've noticed is that any kind of damage, doesn't even have to be precision damage, but I do think it fills up quicker when you're doing precision damage. Any of that fills the meter. And once it's full, I believe it does slightly more damage. Now, again, this would need to be tested, but I started to just pay attention to the crit numbers, and they kind of go up by about 10. Now the meter resets every time you reload, so that's the catch. So if you're doing damage, you have to pay attention to the fact that that meter's building up, and once it reaches the top, it does that added damage boost. So if you have the annoying habit of reloading after every kill, like I do, particularly at PvP, you definitely need to stop doing that with this pulse rifle, because you're losing one of the hidden sort of perks in it. It doesn't talk about this at all, but and I do think it has to be tested to bear it out, but I believe it does do a slight boost to damage when that meter fills up. It does have a healthy size clip of 50 rounds, so that helps. So if you're landing crits, excuse me, if you're landing crits and you're filling the meter up fast, you will be able to do that bonus damage to folks with about 10 to 15 rounds still remaining. At least that's the way it worked for me. I'm not the most accurate, so maybe others will have better success with that, but it's pretty fun regardless. In that way, it's kind of unique in that you're watching that meter and you're watching it fill up, so that's definitely something that's cool about the gun. That said, though, I did find myself running out of ammo in gunfights a lot, and because I was trying to get this perk to proc, you don't reload and you leave the magazine sometimes half full, and then that's where that alloy magazine perk kind of kicks in. It gives you a chance to survive, because it does do faster reload speed, because the reload on this gun is about average. So that kicks in right when you run out of ammo. Now, hopefully you're not in a situation where you right in the middle of a battle and you have to reload, because you're pretty much done in that situation. But if you can get behind cover, it'll quickly reload and you can get right back into the action. So that's why that perk really makes sense for this gun. But the bottom line is all these stats complement the gun nicely, and the perks are designed to maximize the strengths of the weapon and minimize the weaknesses of the weapon. So that's what's really good about this. Now, from a PvE and PvP perspective, or versus PvP, and I did mention this is definitely a weapon meant to be used in the Crucible. It does have its usefulness in PvE activities. I used it a lot on strikes, adventures, lost sectors, and it was just fun to use. I will say that you will have a higher likelihood of running out of ammo with this weapon, and that's the case with all pulse rifles, frankly. They burn through ammo, so probably you wouldn't want to choose this over a solid scout rifle for something like the raid, but it is fun to use in other PvE activities, so no reason to not take it along. And as I said, it does have some fun factor to it. As for PvP, I definitely would say that this weapon takes some getting used to. And let's be clear, I'm not the PvP beast that I see from other folks online. I'm a big fan of those folks, but I am roughly about a 1.13 KD from my Destiny 1 days. So for those that are familiar with that, that's just above average play. So when I took this into PvP in Destiny 2, I did struggle a bit at first. I was losing a lot of mid-range encounters, and I was getting frustrated. And as I started to rethink how I was using the weapon, I learned that the case could be made that this weapon really is more of a long range weapon. When I gave myself more room to get off the 5-round burst, and also realize that this is a weapon that fires at a slower rate than something like, say, the Nightshade that's in Destiny 2, or some of the previous weapons from Destiny 1 that were some of our favorite pulses. It doesn't fire that fast, and so you really want to make sure you're in a range that is built for this gun. Although it says it fires more rounds per minute than something like the Nightshade, that's mainly because it's got a 5th round coming out with each of your pulls. I didn't feel like anyway that this thing was firing any faster or even keeping up with something like the Nightshade. Which brings me to my final point on PvP in this weapon. The 5th round perk is a solid thing, but it did require me to keep my head out in the open more than I was comfortable in the beginning, and that's why I really wasn't using the perk to its fullest, because I was often firing it and sort of dipping in and out of cover and taking the reticle off of the person I was shooting at. When I stayed in there a little bit longer and kept the reticle on the person's head a little longer, got the full 5 bursts, I was definitely doing a lot better. So that takes some getting used to, especially if you're used to a normal pulse rifle and something like PvP. So just something to keep in mind. You got to stay in that battle a little bit longer than you're comfortable, but it does reward you for doing so. All in all, though, this is a great weapon with a very slight learning curve with those things I just mentioned in PvP in order to really fully maximize it. Pray to the RNG gods so they'll drop this weapon for you. That's how I got it, and then go and have some fun with it. I hope you enjoyed this exotic weapon video. I plan to do more of these in the coming days and weeks as I get my hands on more and more exotics. So with that, I hope you liked the content of today's video and certainly appreciate you watching. If you did find the content informative, a like is certainly appreciated and helps us out. Of course, if you want more content on Destiny 2 and other great games, remember to hit that subscribe button. Click on the bell next to it to get notifications for when we post new videos. That's all for now. A sincere thanks to all you gamers out there, both the hardcore and the filthy casuals. Let's go and get our game on.